Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the foot for martial artists and active people. And there's actually a lot of structures in the foot that are important. I did draw it earlier so you could see the parts of the foot. There's a lot of other pictures online if you're interested in the toes and the feet. And if you haven't done so already, I actually recommend watching the hands because this will actually go really quick if you already have basics for the hands. If not, if you're actually doing it straight with the feet, it's still possible, but there are a lot of things that are going to be a little different, are going to be a little more challenging. That's what I shouldn't say. Now, what you see is a basic foot, and I'm going to actually start from the toes and go in. Now, if you remember the basics of the hand, the fingers were called the phalanges. Same thing in the toes. The area here, where you see the toes, are the phalanges. And let me see if I can get it to a little dark. Yeah, that's the phalanges. See if green works better. The green works a little better. So that's the phalanges. And you'll notice that in the first toe, which is a big toe, just like the hand, you actually have two parts. One of them is farther away, so they call it the distal phalanx. The one that's closer is called the proximal phalanx. As you go to toe 2, 3, 4, and 5, you'll notice that you do have three phalanxes. So you have the proximal, the distal, and the one in the middle is just called the middle phalanx. Now, if we come over here, we can actually see three bones that look pretty similar, which are called the cuboidal bones. The cuneiform bones. And you have three cuneiform bones. This one being the most medial. Remember, we actually talk about medial being about the midline area, lateral being away from the midline. So medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, and the lateral cuneiform bones. These are actually important because of the way the foot is arranged, and I'll talk a little bit about that more as I go along. And then you have a bone over here, which I'll paint green, called the navicular bone. So you have the medial and intermediate cuneiform bone, and the navicular bone right next to it. Now, resting on top of it, you have this one here, which is called your talus. It actually is just sitting on top of the bones, helping pretty much making a keystone, for lack of a better term. And then in the back, you have the calcaneus. Now, over here, you do also have a cuboidal bone over here. And those are attached to the bones of the foot. So you have the toes, the bones of the foot, and the bones of the ankle, which together are called the tarsals. These here being next to the tarsals are your metatarsals. And what you notice here in the metatarsals is you have a really big first metatarsal. What it's telling you is that's actually the bone that can withstand the most amount of weight. You can actually see that the second metatarsal is long, and that's actually going to play a really significant role later on when we talk about clinicals. Then you have the fifth metacarpal here, which you notice kind of hangs off. Now, there is actually one thing that you'll notice, and that's if I start here and work my way back this way, you'll notice that there's actually a nice row that is followed here. That actually causes an arch here, which is called the medial longitudinal arch. Reason that's important is that's actually the main source of cushioning that your body gets whenever you jump or run or do any traumatic things on your legs. What that means is if you're going on the outside, on the little toe area here, it's not as well supported and it doesn't have the same amount of cushioning. It does have a little bit, but not as much as the medial longitudinal arch. And so what you get is you get this arch coming here. By the way, you also do have another arch, which is the cuneiform bones here. And that's the pretty much transverse arch. So you do have these two arches that actually help the foot function. Now, the one I actually want you to notice is the talus here. And just like everything, things can break. The talus can break. Usually that's from falling from a high-story building. A lot of times it's actually called the lover's fracture because the idea is the guy who's on the second story is jumping out the window, breaking his calcaneus, this bone here, as he lands. Now, you also have other bones that can actually fracture. One of them, which is really important, especially when you're dealing with alignment, is a fracture of the fifth metatarsal, here. And usually that one happens from a misalignment of the foot. The usual way that happens is when someone, one of two ways really. One of them is when someone is trying to imitate a dancer and spinning and going to the pinky side, and as they're not classically trained, they don't spin the right way and they break the fifth metatarsal. If you actually talk to people who are classically trained in dance, they actually spin on the first and second metatarsals, which actually allows for more support. They will actually get the fifth metatarsal fracture, usually when they've overtrained and they're not paying too much attention to their alignment. And they can actually get that fifth metatarsal. So it is called the dancer's fracture. Usually, though, it happens to people who are trying to imitate dancers rather than classically trained dancers. And I mentioned classically trained because some people don't understand that there is a big difference. Someone who's classically trained is told to spin a certain way. Now, if you're a martial artist and you're doing katas which require you to spin sometimes, that's already telling you something. It's telling that if you're going to spin, you want to use this column here. You want to actually be spinning on the first and second metatarsals. So pretty much the ball of the foot closest to the first, to the big toe, and the toe next to it. Otherwise, you will get a fracture. Maybe not right away, but eventually. The next thing that actually, another fracture that is important to notice is the fracture of the second metatarsal. So this here is a second metatarsal, second toe. It can actually break, and it actually breaks because of its size and weight distribution. The way this used to, nowadays it usually happens when people are extremely athletic and are trying to push themselves to the next level. It's usually adding runs with weights. And their foot will start hurting, and boom, it breaks. Traditionally, in the past, these actually occurred when people really didn't pay attention to how the body worked in military training. Usually what would happen is you'd have a relatively active and healthy 18-year-old. You'd give him a bag that was heavier than he was used to. They would have him march. If he complained of foot pain, they would pretty much penalize him. And so what would end up happening is they'd break the second metatarsal, and now you've lost a military recruit. Way to think that one through. So those are actually two of the fractures that actually occur in the foot. And so you can see how all these things do play together, and why, for instance, sometimes people ask in martial arts, how should you spin? Well, if you're going to spin like a dancer. First and second metatarsals. Anatomically, it is better arranged. It is made to maintain more weight. The other one is it avoids the fifth metatarsal fracture. The other thing I actually didn't mention right away, but I should, is this arch here. This is a longitudinal arch, and one of the things that's important to look at that is that sometimes you'll have people who try, in martial arts, a lot of us train barefoot, and sometimes you have people with different anatomical variations of this arch. For instance, some people will actually be complaining of pain in their feet, and it does have to do with this arch being pretty much, instead of an arch, flat. It's a flat-footedness, low arch, and that will actually cause a lot of pain in the feet. And so one thing, if you have someone with flat feet, it's a good idea to have them evaluated by a medical professional, podiatrist, a physical therapist, to actually make sure that they're not going to destroy what they have in their feet, that they're not going to end up with long-term pain. The other one that actually happens is some people have an exaggerated curve, and that can also cause pain, which does need to be evaluated. It may be that a 2-hour class may be enough that, it's not going to affect their feet, but otherwise they should actually be wearing shoes and inserts that protect their arch if they're too high, or support their lack of an arch. But again, that's something that should be done with a medical professional. There is another important thing that I can actually mention here, and I'm going to talk about it more next time when I do talk about the tibia, which is a foot of the leg, which attaches right here to the talus. If you actually look at this, if the tibia starts here and you actually bring it forward, you'll notice that it rests between the first and second toes, which is also telling you, for instance, if you're doing any stances and people are wondering how your knee should be, it should actually line up with your second toe. I hope you enjoy this and have a nice day. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them on comments. And I guess there's 3 people here. I will, before I say goodbye, I will. Oh, Leonardo, great video. Thank you for your comment. I guess there's 3 people. Hope you enjoyed this. And any questions, please feel free either asking them on comments or emailing me directly. There should be a link to how to do that here. Have a nice day. How was it?